Yes, yes, yes. What's going on, fam? Listen, I'm going to say this at the beginning of the show just so that we are clear. Mercury just went into retrograde, so I ain't going to even make no promises of what tonight's about to look like. I'm just not going to even do it. I'm going to do the best that I can. What's up, Cash Money? I'm going to do the best that I can, given the circumstances that the universe is throwing at us. I'm going to give a couple of minutes for people to go ahead and get on and line up. I say this every time that I'm super excited about the show that I have tonight. We have some power lined up for you. This is the power edition, and it's only fitting because it's the Juneteenth edition, right? And we're going to be talking about Juneteenth. You see him? And so with that, it being Juneteenth, it's only fair that let me go ahead and take care of the house cleaning issues. You are tuned in to the Righteous Rage podcast. I am your host, H Soul, coming to you on this special Juneteenth edition. We do this show every week. Show is done in conjunction with the iRise department at DU, where we talk about everything good race. I want to say what's up to the people that are starting to fall into the room. I want to say what's up to Candace that I see just dropped in. I see Christabel, Ruth Ann. All right, Love Bacon. I see y'all. I see y'all making it happen. I have to look at it through my phone. Like I said, we're dealing with Mercury retrograde. So it is what it is, right? No one believes in Mercury retrograde until they actually go through it. Let me just say that. It all seems like hocus pocus until that shit hits you. In the meantime and in the between time, let us jump into the topics for tonight. We are going to be dealing with some very deep topics, and we have some very deep guests to be able to deal with these topics that we're talking about. We're going to be talking about policing, and we're going to be talking about Juneteenth, the connection between the two. I have one of my regular guests that most of you who tune in to the Rage podcast are familiar with, my man Terrence Roberts, aka T-Rob, is tuned in. We got him in the waiting room. We have one of my former students who's back from Howard University, joining us, Peter Lumbambella. I know I butchered that last name. I should have just said Peter L and been done with it. Had him come on and pronounce it himself. But my man Peter L is here with us tonight. Peter has been leading some of the protests that have been happening out in these streets. It looks like T-Rob has been to almost all of them. He's been, I don't know how he's found time to get anything else done. He has stayed out in these streets, and not just the Denver streets. My man's been out in Aurora too. So there's that. And so I got both of them in the house. And so, listen, we got a great show for you tonight. I want to go ahead and hop into it. I was figuring out what the best way was to do this, right? Because I want to present the videos and the topics and the information, but I also want to hear my guest comments on those topics too. And so at first I was going to wait until I brought them up. What's up, Sister Tanya? It's good to see you fall through. But I'm just going to go ahead and bring them up now because I don't want to wait. I'm impatient. And with Mercury retrograde, look at, see, I don't even have my light on. Boom. You see what I'm talking about? That's the type of shit I'm talking about. It's bound to happen in Mercury retrograde. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring them up. And my man, like I said, that you're familiar with. Love you too, sis. Glad that you could join us. Tanya, we're about to get deep, yo. We're going to get deep, Tanya. Tanya's a mental health professional. Most of us are going to need her after tonight. Trust. We're going there. I'm going to go ahead and bring up my guest, both whom I have a lot of love and respect for. Make sure their microphones are working. If not, if we can get them in. What's up, T. Rob? It's good to see you, man. Oh, shoot. That's my bad. See, Mercury retrograde. Go ahead, try it again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. That was my bad.
All right.
What's going on? Yo, I like the camo hat, bro.
Oh yeah, I've been having this hat about 14 years too. It's still going strong. You see, it got that Prodigal Son logo on it.
Yeah, that's fresh, man. That's fresh. And I got my man Peter. What's up, Peter? Did we get your microphone sorted out?
Yeah, what's up? Can you hear me?
Oh, we got him. That's what's up. All right. So, what I'm going to do real quick. Everybody knows T. Rob on my show. Peter, why don't you take a moment and introduce yourself to the Righteous Rage podcast audience?
So, hi everybody. My name is Peter Lubembella. I'm a senior political science major at Howard University, and I'm from Montbello. So I grew up here in Montbello, and while I'm at DC, I like to organize, but I feel like when I come back here to Montbello, back home, like the community, I just has so much fire to it. And like my enthusiasm for like organizing and just being in the community is pushed to a whole different level, whether it's just working with people like Terrence, working with people like Soul, or working with people like Kansas. Right now I'm working with Elijah, I'm working with Sam Elfit, I'm working with Tariq Young. And so like we have a team of 7 young youth who are dedicated to just like organizing as many youth activists as possible, but also supporting other youth activists on the ground. So going to protests, going to rallies, and just being there, making sure there's a youth perspective and the activities that are going on today.
So you've had one rally already. Can you tell us what that rally was for? And you have another one coming up, and I'll post the flyer when you start talking about it. But you had one already. Terrence spoke at that rally as well. What was the first rally about? Why did you have it? Why were you compelled to have it?
That's crazy. We've actually had 2 rallies, matter of fact.
I can't even keep track, bro.
No, it's fine. And Terrence spoke at both of them, matter of fact, too. So I want to say thank you, Terrence, for like supporting us. The first rally it's called the Safe House. And so initially there's so much trauma that's happening right now where I'm African, I'm an immigrant. My parents ran away to escape a civil war in Congo. We lived in a refugee camp for about 10 years and everything. And so my parents have seen a lot of hardship in life, but when my dad was watching the George Floyd video, like he just couldn't take it. He was having a hard time like processing how like they can kill a black man on TV like that, where we've always understood the struggle of like being black in America. But after like that interaction right there, it just like it was her seeing my dad hurt basically by the system. And so one of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to bring people together, and I wanted to help people when they're hurt. So we got some of the best performers, honestly, in the world, if I'm being honest, where we had people like we had youth singers too as well. We had Quincy Shannon perform, we had Raquel perform, we had Renee Davis perform, we had John Shockness perform, but we had a lot of like great artists that are locally known here, but also like just like out of this world talent perform. And so we had spoken words, we had singers, we had actors, we had rappers. So it was all types of art being displayed at the event. And it was just a healing space, bringing people together, giving people a place to like heal their trauma through the arts.
Dope. And T. Rob, as I had said earlier, you've been all over the place, brother. I'm glad that you could even make the time to, of course, follow through the Righteous Rage podcast for a moment. It's been a very busy week for you, and you've done a couple of things this week that are monumental, historical, in fact. Can you let our audience know some of the things that you've been digging into this week?
I mean, so the biggest thing is, that Senate Bill 217 that just passed, the police accountability bill. Of course, Denver did it first. We the first in the nation on a lot of things progressive. So not only am I proud of Denver, but I'm proud of our state. I'm proud of our elected representatives who are young people of color who presented that for us. And now it's a law. Now it's been signed into law. That's the most historical thing that I've probably been a part of in my life. This is a a piece of law. This is a piece of legislation that governs how police are supposed to police the community. So they come out of their post training. They don't really have too many guidelines on how to treat us in the community. We're just now outlawing the chokehold. I mean, come on now. We're just now legislating where if a police officer sees a cop murdering one of us black men, me, you, or Peter, or whoever's listening, a woman or whoever, we are legislating that another police officer is supposed to intervene when a police officer is murdering somebody or harming somebody. You know, these are the type of things that we have to put in this legislation to get some teeth into the police not killing us. And there's more bills that are going to be passed in January. You know, you can also sue the police for harming you. You can sue them as an individual and as a department a lot easier. As you know, dealing with Mayor Michael B. Hancock and our city administration, it's been hard for families to sue the Denver police and the sheriff's department and also APD and get righteous justice because the mayors and these police departments fight these families. But now it's going to be a lot easier for families to sue the police, and the police have to wear body cam. And if they disable those body cams or cover those body cameras up, which is why we knew what happened to Elijah McClain and many of these other police homicides on people of color, especially if they cover up these body cameras, then they're going to lose their certification. And if there's a crime committed, they're already considered guilty, not innocent until proven guilty. They're already considered guilty because they've already broken the law, which is tampering with evidence. So this is the most comprehensive police accountability bill ever signed into legislation nationally. And some of that bill was literally drafted in my living room, you know. So I'm proud of that. You know, I've dealt with some police misconduct in my own life, which really derailed me. It derailed a whole movement that we had. Lots of youth ended up getting hurt, maimed, and killed in gang violence because our movement was broken down. And it stems to the Denver Police Department and the FBI. So for me being a part of that, I mean, I'm elated, man. I it's almost like a dream come true. I can't even believe it.
That's deep. That's deep. So how optimistic are you that it's going to have real impact as far as Black people are concerned?
Very. If every police officer who's getting out of that car and they know in the back of their mind there is a law saying I can't choke Peter and Sam and Elijah out. There is a law saying I can't just put my gun in their face. There is a law saying that if my partner is about to kill one of these young Black men, I have to intervene or I'm going to lose my certification. I'm going to get sued. I'm going to get charges pressed against me. So, you know, that alone, man, if this law saves one life, if this law saves just one life of a young man or woman who would get choked out or get murdered or shot because a police officer felt he had implied immunity. I mean, you know, it's all worth it. It's all for a better good. So not only do I think this bill is going to save one life, this bill could end up saving thousands of lives. We don't even know the impact of what could happen.
Terrence earlier talked about Elijah McClain, but for me, when I was reading about the story and I was reading about the case, it's just like really disheartening to hear police officers say, "Oh, what are you doing with your body cam? Like, turn it off. Like, push it aside." Yeah. When like with situations like that, then Elijah McClain, like with 3 police officers for a person that weighed about 130 pounds, 140 pounds, two police officers putting him in a chokehold. There needs to be some type of accountability in the system, some type of consequence, some types of fear when like doing their job, because we talk about qualified immunity, and I know the Supreme Court said like they're not necessarily going to look at the case of police officers and qualified immunity, but I'm really excited that like Denver was it. I'm really excited that Colorado was able to do something about it, because right now I think, once again, I talk about this all the time, like being an immigrant, one of the first things I learned was no one is above the law. But over and over and over and over and over and over again, we see police officers get away with killing Black bodies, Black boys, Black girls, Black and brown girls as well. Well, like minorities, I've been like gotten the short end of the stick so many times because of the way the policing system looks like. So I'm really excited that Colorado was able to put something in place.
That's a great segue into what it is that I'm about to bring up now. For those of you who are just now tuning in, I'm speaking to Peter Lulumbella. And Peter, am I getting your last name right?
Lubimbella.
Lumbella.
Lubimbella. It means
Lumbella.
speak.
And my man T Rob. For those of you that are tuned in, go ahead and share this now. I'm about to show a video that talks about the origins of policing, because as T Rob was going throughout this process throughout the week, a lot of people don't understand. They think the behavior that they see in the police is something new. And I know that there's an African proverb that says, in order to understand the fruit of a tree, you have to understand the root of a tree. And many people don't even know where the roots of policing come from in this country. So I want to show this video, and then I want to get Peter and T. Rob's comment on this video. I saw my sister Tanya was in the room, so we're going to need them. We're going to probably need her after this video, but I wanted to bring it up and have my guest speak on it after we take a listen to it. Check it out.
Police are
supposed
arrived alive.
Back to
1619.
Those who did survive the horrors of the slave trade and were brought to what would become the U.S. were also subjected to the first form of organized policing in the South, known as the Slave Patrol. In case you missed it, the Slave Patrol and slave catchers were the first form of organized police in the South. These watching-as white folks first emerged in the colony of Carolina in the early 1700s and set the tone for policing as we know it. The Slave Patrol kept tabs on the whereabouts of the enslaved.
So just so we're following, she has just stated that policing came from slave patrols. So that means from slavery, from our life on the plantation. That is where policing came from. That's what this sister is breaking down right now.
And that
If
men and women were off the plantation, then the
Slave
Slave
Patrol
could
could demand to see a slave badge and noting their occupation. Slave Patrol could stop and search whoever's belongings just because.
Did you hear what she said? A slave patrol could stop and search just because. So those of you who think that Michael Bloomberg's stop and frisk and the stop and frisk that came into great popularity in the 80s and 90s is new, think again.
I wonder who that sounds like. Then there was the slave catchers.
That role is pretty self-explanatory.
Slave catchers
chased and returned runaways. They also intentionally scared the bejesus out of the enslaved to instill a sense of fear and prevent revolt. There was some overlap between the role of the slave catcher and the slave patrol. But together, they enforced the idea that black people were second-class citizens and that white people were the authority. And the organized police departments, they enforced this racial hierarchy. In South Carolina, for example, by 1837, there were dozens of officers in the Charleston Police Department whose jobs were essentially to monitor the enslaved. And though slavery was abolished after the Civil War, the spirit of tracking and policing black folks lived on. During the Reconstruction era, black codes were enacted with the quickness.
And they restricted
how black folks could live their lives.
David A. Harris is a
People are saying that they're hearing but you know, that could be, do I have my guest muted? Yeah, I do. I don't know why that's overlapping, y'all. Let me see. Oh, you know why that is? That's my bad. I'm tripping. Here we go.
Professor at the University of Pittsburgh. Harris specializes in law enforcement and race, so y'all know we're gonna have a lot to talk about. How did black people's relationship with law enforcement change after emancipation?
Law enforcement often was cast in the role of enforcing Jim Crow laws and other kinds of laws aimed at maintaining the racial caste system and at keeping black people, quote, in their place. So law enforcement, to the extent it existed, would be one thing for white people and another entirely for black people. It was aimed at maintaining the racial separation that existed and their system of racial privilege for whites and second-class at best citizenship for blacks. And this didn't only exist in the South. There were certainly law enforcement efforts that did the same thing in northern cities.
You're on mute, by the way. We can't hear you.
Mercury retrograde, bruh. Mercury retrograde. That's all I'm gonna say. Peter, what are some of your thoughts on that?
I've known you for a while. I know your son too, and that's like one of the first conversation topics we talk about how the policing system is so closely connected to the slave patrol, like just like slave catchers as well, where like once again it's been their position of their job to capture black bodies or to control black bodies, to make sure like black bodies aren't necessarily like causing a big issue in the plantation in a sense, or necessarily like acting out of place. And so like just like hearing this is just like, what is it? We emphasize the idea that like the police, like there needs to be a change in the police system.
I can't hear Peter.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I'm not exactly sure why. Yo, can you hear me, T?
I can hear you, but I can't see or hear Peter.
Okay. I'll bring him back up in a second. Did you see the video?
Yep, I got to see a good portion of it, except up to the very end, because I can't see the video from my cell phone, but I got to log on to Facebook and log back on here.
Yeah. So just so that we're clear, the audio is on me. You know, a Mercury issue and my old computer, but there's supposed to be a new one on the way. Terrence, what are your thoughts on that? On what you saw? I know it's not anything new to you, but what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, so I testified before the Senate actually this week about Senate Bill 217, and that's actually part of my testimony for them to consider the bill was how policing started even in the first place. The first certified policing was exactly what she said, was around catching slaves, black people fleeing rape, torture, murder, beatings, you name it, waterboardings, everything under the sun that you could do to break a person, hurt a person, kill a person, demean a person. They were escaping that, and that is where modern day policing came from, to drag those people back to rape, back. And once they escaped and when they got back, when those slave hunters dropped them back off, some of those people were even murdered. So beaten, hung up on trees for days.
So, T-Rob, you again have,
so that was.
You've again preempted me, because the first time that I had you on a panel, it was for a documentary called Do Not Resist. And that was about 3 or 4 years ago. You had just come out of your trial. The documentary had just come out. I want to show this to people, because in this documentary, and a lot of people have not heard of this documentary. They haven't seen it, which is why we thought it was important to show it. Because of that, right, I want to show this video real quick and let people understand what we're talking about. This is from a documentary called Do Not Resist. You should get it. If you haven't had access to it, it's definitely something you should check out, because it's really, really powerful. Check it out.
We are seeing a growing debate about so-called warrior cops, a term that I've heard, and the militarization of police. I think it's very important to remind our fellow citizens that we need a range of weapons and equipment to respond and protect our fellow citizens and protect ourselves.
Front! Front!
We are at war, and you are the frontline troops in this war.
We are preparing for any type of situation. Of course, anything dealing with ISIS is a concern. We do a lot of training in the event that we had a situation like what they had in Missouri.
There's actually written description.
I'm just stopping here real quick. I have a picture. My daughter and I were sitting on our porch, and one of those vehicles that you just saw came down York Street headed towards the rally that Peter's talking about that he had. They had this type of equipment, this type of military equipment at those rallies, surrounding those rallies that they brought in from towns, cities, adjunct, directly parallel to Denver. So Denver has this type of equipment, and so does some of the surrounding ones have this equipment.
For how the equipment should be used, and it says it's specifically not supposed to be used for riot suppression.
I know you for a long time, bro. A long time. Y'all still killing us. 25 years I've been here. 25 years here, I never killed a man.
Folks, there ain't nobody in Mexico right now complaining about militarization of police. You understand? In the very near future, you will be vindicated.
It's clear. There's got to be some drugs here.
We need to put the brakes on the fear, and we need to act rationally. Terrorism works because it makes people irrational, and it makes them destroy themselves.
So there is a white dude in that video, and I have some secret film or some never before shown film of this police officer who trains the FBI. I'm going to show that now. I want you to understand what type of mentality and why people like T. Rob are saying that these bills are necessary. You see this crazy mother sucker right here? This dude right here? This dude trains the FBI and police forces around the country. I want you to listen very closely to what he is saying. Let me say that one more again. I want you to listen very closely and very clearly to this person who is training the FBI and police agencies around the country is saying to you in this. Did you hear what he just said? I want you to prepare yourself that from all of my studies, killing is not that big of a deal. That is what he just said just then. I'm going to take it back, and then I'm not going to interrupt again, but I want you to listen to it very closely.
I am convinced from a lifetime of study If you fully prepare yourself, in most cases, killing is just not that big a deal. For a mature warrior who's prepared themselves mind, body, and spirit for a lifetime, for a mature warrior who's killing somebody represents a clear and present danger to others, it's just not that big a deal.
I want to bring up my guest, Peter. What do you think about that, bro?
It's heartbreaking, man. It's heartbreaking because when I think about the police system, I don't necessarily have the answers to how policing should look like or where we need to go from here. But I know, like, once again, I think oversight is important. I think we got to make sure, like, there's consequences at the other hand. But when you hear stuff like that, I feel like the whole idea of consequences and oversight is kind of like doesn't necessarily make any sense when there's no morality involved in, like, the idea of policing, where if you can kill somebody, you feel good about it. Like, once somebody's dead, they're dead. Like, there's nothing you can do to, like, bring a person back. And so oversight looks kind of funny once if police are out here walking around like feeling like killing somebody isn't necessarily a big issue. So, like, right now I'm definitely conflicted where it's like I'm talking about oversight. I'm talking about, like, we need more consequences. We need the justice system to actually work because it hasn't worked in the past. But then you hear stuff like that where people that train the FBI, people that train the police are talking about it's basically okay to kill. Then I know the people that are getting killed the majority of the time are people that look like me or people that maybe a little darker, a little lighter than me. And that's where, like, the morality is gone, because you kill a black or a brown boy, like a black or brown girl. There's no morality. Obviously, you don't feel bad about it. You should feel good about it, according to Dude's words.
T-Rob, I don't know how much of that second video you were able to see, but where homeboy, the police officer who's training the FBI is in a training, makes the statement that killing is not that big of a deal. What are your thoughts about that?
I mean, that's the problem. And I did see that, and I seen where he says it's not that big a deal if it's somebody who is presenting a clear and present danger to you or somebody else. So who decides that? So, like, let's look at the killing of Paul Childs in the Holly Square Shopping Center. Now, when Paul Childs was murdered by James Turney of District 2 with the Denver police, this young man obviously had mental disabilities. I mean, he was a young man who you can obviously look at and tell he had some mental challenges, some cognitive thinking challenges. So they knew that he was a child. They knew that he had a diminished mental capacity, and he had a steak knife. And he was literally maybe even 20, I don't know how many yards away he was, but he was about 20 to 21 feet away from this officer who had a 9mm, had other officers there with him, and they shot him several times and murdered him. And even though he had that kitchen knife in his hand, Mr. Child's mother actually was the one who called the police and told the police that he has this knife, but we're not afraid of him. He has some mental issues, and he's just having an episode. He's not going to hurt anybody, but we just want you to come help us talk to him. The police pulled up and murdered him. So who got to decide at that moment in time that he was a clear and present danger and he deserved the death penalty? That police officer. You understand what I'm saying? And that is why all these police committees, most of that stuff is bull crap. And we have officers, not different cops, overseeing their friends. I'm gonna be honest with you. If there was an act committee and a bunch of racist white people didn't like what you and Peter were doing, I'm probably gonna side with you and Peter 9 times out of 10, if not 100% of the time, over what somebody else outside of the community thinks you ought to be doing. You understand what I'm saying? You know, so that's why we need legislation against policing, because these police won't stop killing us. They won't prosecute themselves unless we have outside laws that are going to govern the way they do policing.
So
And
go ahead,
wait,
Peter.
I was reading this book the other day. It's called Still Invisible, and one of the things that caught my eyes was just the whole idea of how Black youth are perceived by like police, or just by with even in the education system, where like we see high suspension rates. And so like this really caught my attention, where he says in America, Black children don't get to be children. In fact, research has revealed that the overestimation of a Black child's age begins at young ages, as young as age of 12, impacting the way they're often seen and treated by others. And so when you hear stuff like that, it's just they're talking about a present threat, or somebody that's like you're scared for your life basically. But like we talk about implicit bias and like the lack of training that police go through, right? Everybody's scared for their life when they're dealing with 12-year-old boys. So we have Tamir Rice. Even we're talking about what's a like clear present danger, where Mr. Brooks in Atlanta, the dude was sleeping in his car because he might have had a little too much to drink, and like they had a whole civilized conversation, and before you know it, everything turned aggressive, and he's running away, and they shot him in his back when he's running away. He might have had a taser in his hand, but a taser is inside a deli. And so once again, Black lives and Black boys are seen as like so much more like violent just off the bat. So when you talk about like, oh, if you're scared for your life, then it's okay. Like, what constitutes something that's scary?
So I made a statement earlier this week, and it ruffled a few feathers, and I'm gonna make the statement here again, and I want to get both of your thoughts on this statement. When I was breaking down who police officers were from the very beginning, the slave catchers, I was saying that it's important to understand that these were white people who were not masters. These were overseers. These are white people that really had just a little bit more than the slaves themselves. That's why they were called rednecks. They were called rednecks because they were out in the fields overseeing the slaves. And because they were out in the fields overseeing the slaves on a horse or standing, their necks got red. And that's how rich white people, massa, who was inside under umbrella or on the veranda sipping lemonade, referred to those white people who were out in the field and were in charge of overlooking and overseeing Black people. Those were the original or the origins of police. And so throughout the ages, the people who have been overseers to officers to police are generally white people, working class white people that have a disdain for Black people because they got to be out there policing them in the first place, and are violent, as T. Rob talks about, have a propensity towards violence. I think somebody said that the police in New Jersey, you could become a police officer in half the time that it takes to become a barber in New Jersey. So it takes 10 weeks to become a police officer. It takes 20 weeks to become a barber. And this is the type of mentality we saw in Atlanta when they talked about the rules that they were going to put in place. The whole SWAT team quit because they felt like they were getting a bad rap. What are your thoughts on that assessment, T?
I mean, so the fact that these police are quitting because they're starting to be told you can't murder anybody you feel like goes to show that we need legislation around policing. And my thought about that is good riddance. Like, let them go. You know what I mean? But this opens up the conversation of this. We are going to defund the police, which I am definitely an advocate of. We were talking about defunding the police. Remember, we were talking about what we're going to do with the public safety budget, these different things. We're going to shift money. Before the term defund the police came up 2-3 weeks ago, we were already having conversations saying we could do this with the public safety budget. We could do this with the general fund. We could fund nonprofit organizations. Remember, we were talking about this stuff, right?
Yep.
Now it has a name. It's called Defund the Police. We didn't have a name for it. We were calling it Save Our City. So if those police want to go, cool. Let's defund the police. But now what needs to happen when we defund the police? What's going to happen if somebody hurts your daughter? So what's going to happen if your son is walking down York Street and 4 young men pummel him and beat him and put him in a coma? We got to get more organized as organizers, and we got to learn how to police our own communities, for one, to where the crime is prevented before it happens in the first place. We need to have programming, employment. We need to have things for youth and violent people who are going to commit crimes to deter the crime. And once the crime does happen, once we defund these police and they want to quit or they don't want to show up, then we need to figure out a form of community or restorative justice that we're going to have in our community, because I'm down for defund the police. I'm down to get rid of these violent racist white men and women and these sellouts of color who stand beside them and let them destroy us while they're looking and catching the paycheck. But then that also opens up the conversation of community policing, crime prevention before it happens. And once it happens, are we going to call the racist white man to go pick him up, or is Peter H. Solon Terrence, if we're going to have that type of community clout? So we got a big conversation on our hands when it talks about policing. I mean, we got a youngster who was 17 years old who was murdered at a Juneteenth event just last night.
That's right.
We actually had a few homicides in the metro area last night. So we definitely need to defund the police, and we definitely need to get more organized. I was on a Zoom earlier about some of the shootings that's been happening with Jason McBride and those guys there at the Parkville Golf Course. And I mean, pretty much even on that Zoom, my thing is this: if the Crips and the Bloods are cooler than the organizers and the activists, then we're gonna have more Crips and Bloods, which means more shooting. So if we don't get our act together as a community and as organizers, then it's either gonna be the racist white man getting us justice, or it's gonna be us getting our own justice. And then that's the conversation. It seems like everybody's screaming defund the police, but don't nobody want to talk about us getting organized where we don't even need the police in the first place. That's what I'm not hearing, and that's what we need to start working on.
That's a deep piece.
Peter. Because like today I woke up and I saw the story about the 17-year-old black male that got killed, right? And the first thing I hit up Sam and Sam Alfe. Sam Alfe is one of my teammates on 10 for 10, right? And I was like, we got to do a visual. And as soon as I told him, like, send him that text, right, I saw Jason McBride was already organizing something similar to that. And I think what it is I think it's the perfect connection to the whole idea of us getting organized, where I think right now what I see in my community and something that I want to change is I feel like there's a lot of duplicated efforts where there's a rally over here, 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 there's a protest over here, protest over here, protest over there, where as a community, we can be so much more impactful if as organizers we came together and said, we're going to have one big protest, one big rally, and we're going to make a lot of noise. Instead of having 30 people at this rally over here and 100 people at this rally, we can combine these two rallies together. And so that's what I really empathize that I would connect with the idea of getting organized as organizers, because that's the only way we're going to save our city. But another thing is working on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. and everything, and just like being able to read some policies regarding education, regarding just the workplace, regarding how people are getting replaced by machines in places like Walmart, where like they're having self-checkout now instead of people actually working. I think it's important to say that like we have to be mindful of policies, and we have to be mindful of voting, and we have to be mindful that we're voting for people that will represent us. Because at the end of the day, we talk about doing all these rallies and protesting and being in the streets and everything. I think we need a mixture of both, where we need people that are also voting, and we need people that are advocating that are on Capitol Hill, or like Terrence was doing, like testifying in front of the Senate and everything, because like that's policy. When policies are created, they affect everybody, and policies are sustainable change that can be made. And so we got to be intentional about, first of all, organizing as organizers and making sure we're not duplicating any effort, but so we can be powerful and more effective, but also getting out in the streets and also like making sure we're voting as well. Because at the end of the day, if we are voting, but like protesting and rioting and doing all that, but there's no policy that are like backing up, or there's no action that's like helping sustain that change, we might fall short. So Like, I really agree with that, but I think we should also put a lot of emphasis on making sure we have policy to support our change and like the movement that we're trying to push.
I want to circle back to a point that T. Rob just made I want us to really nail it down, because I think it's a point that really gets passed over quite a bit, and I think I want to push you to on this particular point is that the irony that last night that this 17-year-old was killed during the same time that we're having all of these rallies where we're talking about Black Lives Matter. People in the Black Lives Matter movement are selling T-shirts and putting chalk drawings down on the ground and playing drums, which all has its place. But the fact that there's 30 different protests and rallies taking place at any given time and there's no uniformity of it kind of underscores the fact, T. Rob's point, if we pull police out of the community and we're not even organized enough to have a central organization around that could even just organize our rallies, much less the safety of our women, of our children, of our youth, of our homes, of our schools, are we really ready mentally, physically, to have that type of independence? Or are we just barking, but we haven't done what the Black Panther Party did, which was have patrols that were steadily on the streets, self-policing? T. Rob, what are your thoughts on that?
So I got a good friend that I grew up with, was at a house party, got gunned down last week, okay? At this house party, they had about 20 to 30 gangbangers having a great time, drinking, music, everything. I don't know if I've seen 30 organizers in Denver having a great time together ever. Ever. I seen Peter. I see Sam. You know, I see these young brothers. I see Elijah. I see him at the Capitol doing events. I see these young brothers stressing over these events. I've been through it, so you've been through it. There's another event planned. There's those I got on my page. If I'm calling people snitches, show up. Who knows if this thing's and putting up people's paperwork? I got all kind of activity on my page. I posted a flyer with some young men who could be out here committing murder. These brothers is organizing like grown men, like they our age. I didn't even get 10 likes on it. You know, so we got a lot of sexy talk. When I say sexy talk, a lot of this progressive stuff sounds good, right? It sounds real good. And everybody's down with defund the police. I'm down with it too. All I'm saying is, are we ready? Can we get ready? If we're not ready for that, then we're going to end up having to call the same white man we protesting to go get the rapist or go get the child molester. So let's have that conversation.
Yeah.
Now, let me say this last thing about defund the police. Defund the police does not mean there will be no police. Defund the police means even though they're making 80, 90,000 a year to ride around and waste gas all damn day, most of their day, when they got that softball team, they could use their own paycheck to pay for the softball team stuff. The city should not be paying for the DPD's basketball team. Okay.
Yeah,
use y'all's own money the same way to this show. When they want to play baseball or basketball, they gotta go buy it. When they want to do these extra policing activities, then they need to pay for it. They don't need new billy clubs. Them billy clubs is made out of wood. I've seen canes last 200 years, okay? Them thick wooden billy clubs that cost $500,000. You don't need no new billy clubs. Them billy clubs you got is going to work just fine. You don't need no new guns. There's some guns that's 200 years old. You don't need no new guns. You don't need nothing new. Everything y'all got, y'all need to keep that and quit wasting taxpayers' dollars on police having extra amenities on top of their salary on top of their benefits, on top of qualified immunity. You could kill anybody you want. You get a paycheck. You get to go play baseball, basketball. The police just feel like they rule the world. They run our media. They run our street gangs through dangerous informants. Yeah, let's defund these fucking police. Excuse my French for all of our elders and youth that may be listening, but fuck the police. Like, let's defund them. Does that mean we won't have no police? No, there's always going to be police. This is America. But we do need to snatch some of that unnecessary money that they're wasting on nothing. And we need to pass even more legislation around policing, because Senate Bill 217 is a great start, but it's not the end. We need more teeth, even in that bill too.
Peter,
that's how I feel about it.
No, I was gonna say, for me, when I think about like the police budget, right, and how much money the police budget, how big it is, and I think about like my community, I think about Montbello, and I think about my education system, where I had a lot of like I had some very passionate teachers, but also realized there were some issues in terms of funding, where some of my teachers that are passionate about the community are at risk of getting fired because there's not necessarily enough funds going into the Montbello education system. I think about how we talk about people poor people, right, or people that are living in harsh situations are more likely to commit crimes per se. Then why don't we just make sure like people aren't living in harsh situations? Why don't we take a lot like those big funds that are being used to police people, right, and use them to actually like serve the people and better the people and be there for the people? Where we look at Montbello once again, it's a food desert. Where's the grocery store? You feel me? Let's get a grocery store in here. There's like a lot of that money can be used to like sustain a lot of the resources that like the community needs, instead of necessarily it being just limited to just like, hey, go and drag it to police. I feel like we gotta make sure we take a lot of the money, take some of the money from the whole defund the police movement and put it like heavily into our community, making sure we have the right people in our schools, making sure that that like the kids in our community have the resources that they need to be successful, because a lot of kids in our community don't have the resources that they need to be successful, and we just let it fly by, and we let it go by. People advocate for it, people fight, and people get tired of fighting, and people are getting kicked out of the system for fighting, and that's not okay. Where if we're talking about making sure we like ending all these systems that oppress Black people, I think it starts with education, and I think it starts with like making sure the environment that they're growing up in is sustainable for their success. And as of now, our environment, the education system has been failing us for so long. So I think there definitely needs to be a change. There needs to be an influx of funding in the education system, and then like the environments that you consider harsh.
So I put up the flyer that you have coming up, Peter. Can you talk a little bit about what this rally is about?
Yeah. So, okay, I'm excited about this rally because I think this rally right here, I think this is like what's going to take for people to actually. I think it's like in order to overturn the system and fight the system, I think it takes more efforts like this. Where the rally July 4th, the Rise Up 4th of July rally, right? We're talking about Native American rights. We're talking about women's rights. We're talking about LGBTQX rights. We're talking about the mass incarceration system. We're talking about the education system. And this is because a lot of times we talk about independence and we celebrate the 4th of July and everything, but we look back at 1776, like Black people didn't have freedom. Women didn't have any freedom. Native American people were still getting kicked out their land. Hispanic people, Latino people were still getting kicked out their land as well. And so we are here celebrating 4th of July, but it's not our Independence Day. Like 4th of July didn't do anything for us. The Declaration of Independence didn't do anything for us. We talk about all men are created equal, but Black men are still getting killed in the streets. Black and brown boys are still getting killed in the streets. And so the 4th of July rally is an attempt to bring as many people from different communities together, to rally together, to come together and help each other heal. Once again, we're going to have powerful speakers. We're going to be there to educate each other. We're going to have spoken words artists. We're going to have performances as well. And we're going to highlight as many cultures as possible. We're going to tackle as many issues as possible. But I'm a strong believer that in order to overturn the system, we all have to come together. We can't necessarily focus on Black issues alone, or Hispanic issues alone, or Latino issues alone, or women's rights issues alone. I think there needs to be a common understanding, right? A consensus where, okay, this is a system that we want to tackle, and we all got to be together and like let's tackle one point at a time. but it's gonna take all of us, because once again, all these duplicated efforts by like different minority races, minority groups, won't necessarily break the system like we want to. So it's gonna take everybody coming together, and that's the whole point of this rally.
Got it. Well, you know, we've reached our time. I want to give each of you just a moment to go ahead and close out. Peter, let's start with you since you just finished. We want to thank you for coming on our show. Thank you for being a proud Bison that's handling. You just crossed over as well. Congratulations on crossing over the sands. What are the start times for this rally on the 4th of July?
So perfect. We have the rally from 5 to 8 p.m. And so we wanted to put a little like later in the day, so like give people an opportunity to get themselves together. But like in closing off, I want to say, if you haven't, please go to 10 for 10. So we have an Instagram page, we have a Facebook page. It's the number 10, then FOR, then 10. But we are a youth group where there's about 7 of us. We have four boys, then 3 girls as well. We want to make sure we're diversifying our perspective in everything that we're doing. We want to make sure we are organizing youth in the community. We want to also make sure we're holding events that are able to build our community and heal our community. So we have a barbecue lined up. We have Black Men Feed Denver happening again. We have a fashion show as well. We're trying to highlight youth fashion. So please make sure you support us. We also understand that at the end of the day, that while youth have all this energy and I have all this energy, we all have all this energy. Like, check us in the room. Like, there's just so much energy. But we also understand that we're going to need a lot of wisdom from our elders. And we also understand we need a lot of like help and assistance in the overall process, like just becoming the activists that we want. So please make sure you follow the page. Please support us however you can. And thank you once again for everything you guys have done for us just off the bat.
Right on, Peter. I appreciate it. Make sure you have for your fashion show, you should get some camo gear up in there. You have to talk to Rob about that. Yo, T, you got a minute. Let us know. What's going on with you? What should we be looking for?
I mean, so we got like Candace Bailey has been working on that ketamine bill out in the world, making sure that if you are distributing ketamine to people like Elijah McClain, our youth, then you are certified. We still working on direct action initiatives. You know, we still about this protesting. We're not done yet. I know it's just as small down at the Capitol right now, and but that's okay. That's what we've been fighting for unity and preserving the space. We're holding that space. But we some of us are still taking it deeper than that. We're not just standing around playing music. Like, we're still organizing. We still got Dave Young, who's the district attorney, who failed to prosecute the officers who killed Elijah McClain. He is not off the hook. We still want to talk to this EMT who gave him the ketamine. He is not off the hook. And like the brother Peter just said, we fighting all these wars right now on all these fronts, and we standing up to domestic violence, to gang violence, to animal abuse. We're fighting for our unhoused neighbors. We're fighting for our migrant community who are here. We got so many different people who are downtrodden, that we have all these different issues that we need other people to stand up. So that's what we're doing, man. We're standing up for everybody. Because, we a buzzword with progressive. We got a lot of buzzwords with progressives. One of the main buzzwords is intersectionality. And like Peter just alluded to, our intersectionality is systemic oppression. Okay? So we all do need to stand together. We need to become a unit, like a fist. We don't all do the same things. There's 5 different fingers on the fist. But once we come together, it's a solid unit. It's a weapon. You understand what I'm saying? And it's, you can strike something, you can hurt something with this, So, one finger, it's gonna be hard to hurt something with a finger, So, put them together, and we're a force. So we're still working on direct action items, and we're still looking at defunding the police so we can start putting money. Abuse before it happens, okay? And that's what we're working on.
That's what's up. And there we have it. So listen, there it is, man. It was another great show with some great guests. I always love having my man T Rob in the house. we look to talk to him weekly because he's doing so much. And my main man, Peter, we didn't talk about it. I give him a hard time, but he's one of the most brilliant minds and really lots of energy. Get in at the bottom floor of this young brother right now. You're going, mark my words, if I can stop the corporate capitalist from getting him, he will be one of the huge change makers for Black lives for many, many, many years to come. So my name is H Soul. You've been tuned in to the Righteous Rage podcast. Make sure you go follow Terrence Roberts on Facebook. Make sure you go follow Peter Lumbella. I know I butchered that. Peter L. and then Lumbella or something like that. I'll post it. That's what I'll do. Make sure you follow this young brother too. Mark my words, both of these young men are doing some very, very powerful work. You can absolutely be sure that if I had them on the Righteous Rage podcast, that they are the movers and shakers here in the city. So in the meantime and in the between time, my name is H Soul. On behalf of everyone here at the Righteous Rage podcast, I want to tell everybody, make sure that you love and protect one another because we have nothing to lose but our chains. And on that note, this is H Soul and I'm out. Peace.